In this lesson, we're gonna learn more about fluid attributes by applying that on an example, which is cigarette smoke. So make sure you open the scene called cigarette geo. And now let's create the fluid. Let's go to fluids and let's click on to the container because it's faster to calculate and it works okay with the example, okay? So if I move that up and I need to go again to the fluid emitter and move it down, and now if I select that again and if I scale that, for example, on a size 20. By the way, the scaling from the attributes here is different than scaling the container, okay? So let's say you have 100 voxel, okay? When you scale it from here, you still have 100 voxel, but when you scale it from here, you will get more voxels, okay? So that's why I am scaling that from here. So let's move that somewhere here, and let's scale it on Y, about 30. And you'll notice now if I move that, and really this is annoying every time I need to change the emitter, so you need just unparent that by selecting that, and let's go to edit and let's go to unparent, okay? So let's adjust the container. After that we can reparent the emitter to the container. So let's scale it on x2 25. I think it's okay, something like that, or let's set it to 30. Okay, and now let's select the emitter and move it somewhere here, and let's see. Okay, so now let's parent that by holding the middle mouse button and then drag and drop it on the fluid emitter. So now it's parented. So now let's hit play and see. And by the way, I increased the range to 500, okay? And let's hit play and see. As you notice, the first thing, the container doesn't have resolution, okay? As you see, we have square voxels, okay? So we need to increase that about 164 now, and then we'll increase that a little bit more. And remember, every time I increase that, the simulation will take longer to calculate, so keep that in mind. Okay, so in the contents method, you notice here we have the density and the velocity and the temperature and the fuel. So for the temperature and the fuel, it's set to 0, okay? So we don't have any temperature or fuel, okay? Just we have the density and velocity. So now if you change the velocity to 0 again, and let's go back, and as you see, nothing happens because the velocity driving the density, okay? And nothing will happen, just the density will be emitted at the same point here in the next to the emitter. So if I change that to dynamic grid and change that to 0, and now if I hit play, and again we have velocity but we don't have any density. Okay, so let's change that dynamic grid and we'll take a look at these features later. Let's scroll down to the dynamic simulation. So here you'll notice we have the gravity. Of course, you know what is that. If you increase that, the smoke will up faster. And the viscosity, this will make the smoke thicker, okay? So say, for example, you have some noise on the smoke, and if you increase that, this will blur the noise, okay? So this is great, for example, if you want to create a candle effect. So if you increase the viscosity, this will make the fluid thicker, okay, and heavier. And the friction, of course, it's friction. And the damp, this, if you increase that, for example, 0.5, now the smoke will lose the energy, okay? And as you see, it's barely rising. So this is useful when you have fast smoke and you need to adjust the speed of the smoke a little bit, so you can increase that, okay, or use the damp feature. Okay, and here you see I have the solver Navier stocks, okay? So if you change that to spring mesh, this is another algorithm. I don't know what's happening here, so it's white. Okay, I never used that, to be honest with you. I always stick with the Navier stocks, okay? So this is just algorithm, different algorithm. And the high detail solve. So here if you come and then change that, for example, all grids except velocity, this is very interesting. And now if I go back and play the simulation, now you'll notice we have more details on the smoke. Okay, let's increase the resolution a little bit more, for example 300, and now let's hit play. And you'll notice now we added more details on the smoke without affecting the motion of the smoke. And notice how we have much more details and nice details on the smoke itself without affecting the motion or the movements of the smoke. Great feature. And here is the interesting part, and if I go to velocity only, so now this will add just the details to the velocity. Okay, so now the smoke movement will change over time. And as you see here, we have some different results. And you can, of course, go to all grids. This will affect the velocity for the density and the velocity too. Okay. And let's leave it to all grids except velocity. Okay, really nice feature. And here you'll notice we have sub-steps. If you have fast moving objects, let's say you have a sphere and the sphere animated, and the animation is too fast. For example, the speed is from 0 to 10, for example, and the sphere moves very fast. You need to increase the sub-steps, for example, 2 or 3. If you increase that to 2, and then Maya will calculate the simulation 2 times every frame. Okay, so of course this will make the simulation longer to calculate. And the solver quality, if you increase that, that will make the simulation longer to calculate too. Okay, and here you have the grid interpolator, and this is different algorithm. So if I change that to Hermit and hit play, and let's see, and you'll notice it's too slow. Okay, but this will add more details on the smoke, but as you see it's very slow. Okay, let's change it back to linear, and the start frame where you want the simulation to be started, and you have simulation rate scale. This is when you want to make the simulation faster. For example, if you set it to 2, this will be multiplied by all the values here, and the simulation will be faster 2 times. Okay, or you can decrease it to make it slower. And forward advection, if I check that on, now the voxels will push the density. Okay, so the container will create a field and the voxels will push the smoke. Okay, we don't see the result too much here, because if you make a 3D container and then create, for example, a storm or anything like that, you will see the details. Okay, so the voxels pushing the density. Okay, turn that off, and here you have the conserve mass. If you check that off, the fluid will ignore the mass of the smoke. Okay, and here you have the use collisions. If you turn that off, if you have any collisions here, will be ignored. And you have the use emissions. Of course, if you turn that off, the emitter will not emit any smoke. And use fields too, if you turn that off, will ignore, the container will ignore any fields you added from here. Okay, and emit in substeps. Let's say you created the substeps to 2. Okay, and this time when you check that on, the fluid will emit 2 times every frame. Okay, because you have 2 substeps. If you have 4, the emitter will emit the smoke 4 times if you set that to 4. Okay, and of course this will make the simulation longer to calculate. And let's go back here and set that to 1, and let's see the result. And another thing I want to change, that I'm going to up and then change the use height field. This will add some depth to the smoke, so it don't look flat. Okay, it will still look flat if you come over, look at it from here. Okay, so but from the far from the smoke, it will help a little bit. And another thing, I want to change the boundary y to -y. I don't want the fluid to be collided with the upper area. And let's see what we get. Okay, as you see, the result is great. And now let's cache the fluid on a disk. And before I cache the fluid, I want to mention that never trust the viewport. For example, even if we cache the fluid and play the simulation, we are not sure if the timing is right or the simulation is playing in the real time. So let's do the cache first and then we'll continue. So let's go to cache and let's go to encache and then create new cache and then Maya fluid. Make sure you select the container, okay? And let's see where is the, okay, it's in our project. And here you can specify the time slider. So I want to cache it from 1 to 500. Okay, and let's create the cache. Okay, the cache is finished. So if I go back and then play the animation or the simulation, you'll notice it's playing fast, right? And but even if it playing fast, we need to go and click here and choose play blast because we need to be sure that everything is okay. So let's change that to image and then change that to Maya and let's hit play blast. Okay, let's set the camera something like that and let's hit play blast. Okay, so I stopped the play blast till the 309. Okay, so now we let the F check make one loop and then we can see it in real time. Okay, so now we can see the smoke in real time because now it's faster and it's in real time. So if you play from the viewport, maybe there is something wrong in the viewport or it's slow to calculate to view the smoke. Okay, so you need to make sure you are playing that from the F check. Okay, and of course you can go to file and save the animation and then import that to After Effects and export that as a video. Okay, so don't forget to apply what you learned in this lesson and see you in the next lesson.